Wonderful. Okay, so yes, I will be recording. All right, so my name is Elina Kang. I'm a sophomore accounting and political science major. I'm also working towards a certificate in business fundamentals at the college. I'm also a part of Holy Cross SJ Senate and SPUD, and today I have the pleasure of introducing two seniors at the college. We first have Sienna, and she is studying psychology and history with a concentration in Africana studies, and Dorean is also a senior psychology major at Holy Cross. In their presentation, they'll talk more about themselves, introduce themselves a little more, and you can get to know them. But to start, they are both Worcester natives, and they sought to bring attention to the various Black-owned businesses in their hometown. So they compiled this list, which again, they'll talk more on. And being members of the community as both residents and students, they felt really drawn to take action following the most recent events pertaining to the Black Lives Matter movement. So in their presentation, they will explore more about entrepreneurship, women empowerment, and networking. And I would ask you guys all to hold your questions until the end. We'll have a Q&A session then. But while they do have the presentation, you can just enter questions in the chat if anything comes your way. So I hope you guys enjoy, and I'm going to hand it over to Sienna and Dory.
Thank you, Elina, for that wonderful introduction. So again, thank you everyone for taking the time to attend our session in the Women in Business Conference. We would just like to give you a quick and brief outline of what we will be discussing in today's presentation. So Dorean, if you take it away.
Yes, so we will talk you through how the Black-owned businesses in Worcester directory came to be, from when and how the idea was first brought into light, and how we went about starting, marketing, and adapting to the directory, and where we hope to take our business next. But first, we will formally introduce ourselves to all of you.
So my name is Sienna Ablorh, and I use she, her pronouns. I'm a first generation senior, and like stated earlier, I'm majoring in psychology and history, and I have a concentration in Africana studies. So I know grad school is in the plan at some point in my future, but after graduation next May, coming up very soon, I hope to take some time off and narrow down exactly what I'd like to go back to school for. And Dorean?
Yep, so my name is Dorean Asuako. I also use she, her pronouns. I am a Ghanaian American first generation college student and a second generation immigrant. So I also major in psychology with an interest lying in the counseling and the therapy side of the field. And I would like to, before entering grad school, take some time off to explore opportunities within counseling and therapy. So as you can guess, and as Elina had already mentioned, we are not only both psych majors and students at Holy Cross, but we also share Worcester as our hometown. And so I will let Sienna start us off with when and how the idea of the directory of creating a directory of Worcester Black-owned businesses first came to be.
Thank you. So after the lynching of George Floyd, amidst the ongoing pandemic that we are all thankfully living through, I saw many people were looking for ways to amplify all different types of Black voices. Particularly, I saw neighboring cities around Boston and things like that promoting Black-owned restaurants, and the same for Worcester. So there were already people talking about Black-owned restaurants in Worcester, but I felt the need to go just one step further because I knew so many people in my life that had Black-owned businesses, but they were not in the restaurant industry. So, but of course, nonetheless, they should be amplified. So as you can see from the screenshot in red, I had this bright idea at midnight. And of course, in typical college fashion, I immediately texted Dorean. And one reason in particular why I reached out to Dorean was given the fact, again, we've stated that we are both Worcester natives, but being on campus in Worcester, so many people have asked us, oh, where can I get my hair done in Worcester? Where can I get X type of food in Worcester? Where can I do this in Worcester? And I just thought that this list would be a collective source for all of that, given our various roles, like Jordan and I are part of Black Student Union, Caribbean African Student Assemblage. So we thought this would just be a great addition so we can share within those groups. But within the screenshot, I seem excited, like wondering if you'd like to help me out with this. But what isn't included is my hesitancy to create this list. I just wasn't sure if it would be well received, if it mattered enough, and especially since there was already a list going around with Black-owned restaurants in Worcester. I just wasn't sure if this was something doable, and this is exactly where Dorean comes in.
Yeah, so also in a typical college student fashion, when Sienna had reached out to me at 12 a.m., I also reached out close to 1 a.m. In response that I was very excited and I thought it was a great idea. Being a Worcester native and as Sienna mentioned on campus, people would ask, what did Worcester have to offer? And personally for me, growing up in Worcester, I was so as someone you'd call a homebody, I stayed inside, but I wasn't really familiar with, Black-owned businesses outside of, as I mentioned, I'm Ghanaian, and there's a lot of Ghanaian Americans here in Worcester. So outside of that bubble, I wasn't really familiar. And if you're familiar with Clifton's strengths, connectedness is one of my top 5 strengths. So connecting people to resources and other people is something I think I'm very good at. So I was very excited when Sienna reached out, and I immediately reached out to other people I knew who shared a love for Worcester and exploring Worcester. So that was basically the foundation of how we started the list off, just by reaching out to friends to make it a community effort. So once exhausting the resource of reaching out to friends in the area, we took to social media, finally ready to share the list and start the community effort we hope the directory would be. So Sienna took to Facebook and I took to Instagram, in which I created this post, which I've broken up into 3 parts here that you see. And I created a post shown here on my personal public page. So the post definitely gained traction, and I learned the amazing power of hashtags as I saw a lot of people who were not followers of my page make their way onto my Instagram page and to this post specifically. And in the comments section, people were leaving a whole bunch of different comments of their own business info or information on businesses they knew of. So Sienna had joined a private Facebook group that shares the happenings of the Black community in Worcester and had made a post about the directory. So here too, same thing. We saw people leave business information in the comments, or they were tagging business owners and telling them to reach out to us with their information to be put on the list. So while these spaces that we held on these platforms allowed us to increase businesses on the directory, we started thinking about ways we can reach a larger audience, how we can expand our network. So we became aware of a page, an Instagram page specifically, run by a group of Worcester women that were dedicated to spotlighting and highlighting restaurants and bars in the city. So their page had quite the following, and they were looking to highlight Black businesses. And so we decided to reach out to them in hopes of collaborating and featuring the restaurants that were on our list at that time. So because of my caption from before, I had jokingly mentioned that I'm not a graphic designer. But because of that, a generous community member had reached out to Sienna and I, and was willing to make graphics for the businesses we had on the directory. So with the interest of the women who ran the popular Instagram page and now beautiful graphics in our possession, we were very excited. And then unfortunately, the collaboration fell through. The owners of the page ended up doing their own thing, which was definitely disappointing for us for sure. But this wasn't the only outlet that we reached out to or we attempted to tap into.
Yes. So after, I guess you can call a failed networking, we decided that we're still going to persevere, and we decided to take a leap of faith kind of and reach out to the Telegram and Gazette of Worcester. And they were actually willing to pick up our story. They were interested, given everything going on. They thought it would be a great story. So we ended up doing an interview with an editor. We did a photo shoot, And once the article went live, it was a big booster in getting the word out of what we were doing. Two Black women of Worcester creating a directory of Black-owned businesses, and they're looking for submissions. So we did have a little bit of criticism from some folks asking why we needed or felt the need to highlight specifically Black-owned businesses. But nonetheless, it was a great way for us to expand past our own networks of our close group of friends. We kept asking, like, do you know anyone else? Do you know anyone else that has a Black-owned? Please ask your mom. Please ask your dad. Like, we had definitely exhausted them. So this was a great way for, and especially age group too, hitting different demographics overall with getting our article posted in the Telegram and Gazette. And as the list started gaining more traction and we started getting more submissions to the forum, we definitely started to think about how we can make the list look better and how it could be more presentable. So this is how the list has evolved. So with this publication in the Telegram and Gazette, we needed to adapt to our market. So the first edition of the list, as you can see, the first little box there is suggestion mode. So anyone was able to just suggest something on the document. People were commenting businesses that weren't even in Worcester. They were commenting just names of people. And Dorean and I would have to do a little bit of extra work in terms of trying to find out, okay, well, who is this person? What is their business? What is the location of the business? And it often got very messy because there were just so many collaborators on the document and everyone was typing and it really messed up the format. So eventually we went on to comments. So it was just Dorean and I's format and anyone could comment on the side of the Google document. Again, still a little bit not not as presentable as we would have liked because people would just keep commenting and it was hard to keep up with approving or denying people's comments. And again, the same issue, people would comment things that weren't in Worcester that it was just a little bit hard to keep up with. So where we are now is a submission form. So now people have to fill out certain things. What is the name of your business? Where is your business located? Email address. How else can people contact you? How would you like people to contact you? It provides a little bit more of a sophistication, and we also have a list count. So with the Telegram and Gazette article, we quickly learned that people would want to know how many businesses we have. So we had to manually go through and count all the businesses at first. But now with this Google form, we are able to just automatically update that number, which again is just way more efficient to this growing directory that we hope is going to continue growing. So yeah, that's kind of how we turned it into something more presentable. And Dorean can talk a little bit more about this link tree in her next slide.
Yeah, so this picture that we have is our active link tree, and so Sienna can drop in the chat the link to the link tree specifically. So as you can see, we have the directory link, and then the Google form to contribute to the directory, and then the Telegram Gazette article, and a few other publications that we have featured in. So, kind of talking about, before, we through the Telegram and Gazette post, we've been offered various opportunities to collaborate or talk about the directory. And through that, there's different opportunities. We have to remind ourselves or remember that it's okay to say no. Opportunities come and go, so we don't have to say yes to every single thing. So one instance of this was when a popular regional news channel had reached out to us wanting to do an on-air interview to talk about our work with the directory. So this was definitely a huge deal because the news channel had reached out to us rather than us reaching out to them. And that would that definitely would have taking the directory to a different level. But we had to take a step back, reminding ourselves why we decided to make this directory and would this opportunity allow us to stick to that. And at the time, the young Black woman, Dorean was just murdered. And for me, I couldn't see myself going on TV to talk about, the positives of the Black Lives Matter movement in the list in a way, and kind of put on this strong Black woman facade when attention needed to be drawn towards the murder of another Black woman who I personally saw in myself.
Yeah, and I also share the same sentiments as Doreen in terms of not feeling comfortable to get on a regional, news channel. Um, and my dad was a big factor in this. He was very hesitant, especially about people mixing up my word or both of our words on camera. And we had a little bit of an issue with that in the Telegram and Gazette interview as well, which has since been updated. But this is live on air and there's no cutting and pasting or editing after it's posted. So we were hesitant about that. And also, again, with the events that Doreen just shared, it's just not, it just didn't feel right and feel safe enough to make our faces visible in our community at the time, given everything that was going on.
So we ultimately decided to say no, and that was absolutely okay. And another part of staying grounded for us was knowing what we were good at and building on each other's strengths as business partners. So one aspect of trying to add professionalism to the directory was creating a website where people could not only view the directory, but add submissions about new businesses or just updates on businesses that are here on the directory. So this was obviously a great idea. It sounds awesome, but definitely out of my skill set. And I had to accept that some things you just can't do it yourself successfully, which led me to creating a response-directed forum, where basically when you go on the forum, it asks if you're going to be adding a new business or updating a business that's already on the list, and it directs you to a specific form based on your previous responses. And then also the creation of the link tree, which was definitely a much better decision. And so where we are at with the list now, and like how do we hope to sustain the directory in the years to follow? As most of the work and spread of the list was done over this summer, September came around and the academic year began. So Sienna and I had reached out to 9 colleges/universities that make up the Worcester Consortium and share the directory to ensure that a large number of students who are returning to Worcester were aware of this new resource and to ensure that the directory was still circling around. So this led to some newer opportunities, which aligned with the next steps in what we call our next phase of marketing the directory.
Yes, so after some connections and things like that, we had various opportunities. But right now, what we hope to do, since this has some traction right now, we hope to further our support with businesses. So in doing so, we hope to try to partner with a few and get either a gift card or raffle off a gift card or an experience or something pertaining to that business. And it would just encourage people to try out something new. And again, this could be all across the board. We can do it with Holy Cross specifically for people to immerse themselves in the community next semester, if hopefully people come back next semester, or just in the Worcester community overall, because like Doreen said earlier, not everyone tries out everything in their city. You know, half of the businesses on the list I had never heard of before. So doing this either gift card or raffle type of ordeal could help people in just explore their own community. And also, again, living through an ongoing pandemic, we hope to be a resource or connect the businesses with resources or grants or any COVID-19 relief fund that is ongoing if a business is struggling. Not personal, not us, giving the relief, but trying to connect them with any sources that we find, or trying to find an answer or a connection with that.
Right.
Additionally, oh, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. And I was just going to add, with it's been interesting to see how the directory has kind of already assisted businesses around, specifically highlighting in, if any of you have looked at the Telegram website specifically, when we first made the list go public, we weren't necessarily in contact with a lot of the businesses on the list, right? So we weren't completely sure, what type of impact it was having on them. We were just hearing from people, people would email us just to say thank you, like this has been a great resource, or sometimes we'd have people reach out and say, hey, I went to this place on the list. So definitely we're trying to, and part of our next steps is taking on a more, I guess, hands-on, a closer approach, rather than just like bringing the list together, but kind of doing a little bit more that we can for the businesses. And one way is when the directory had first gone public, a few of the businesses had reached out, or they had reached out to other places, and they had told us that they knew exactly when the directory had gone live, because they had seen an increase in new customers, or just people contacting them for more information, or just seeking out their services. So that was just, it was great to see that the list is making an impact in that way. And now, as Sienna had mentioned, what we're looking to do as part of our next steps is figuring out a more, I guess you can say, hands-on approach, and how we can, further that support of Black-owned businesses.
Yeah, and one way of doing so actually is we were contacted by the Black Economic Council of Massachusetts, who has our link to the directory posted on their website. Again, a larger network than our own, and this covers all of Massachusetts. So hoping that other people traveling through Worcester would be able to use this directory as they're driving by and want to check out something new. So with the Black Economic Council of Massachusetts, we partnered with them for the promotion of Black businesses, specifically with their virtual Black Massachusetts Expo, which is happening this weekend. And they plan on it's a whole weekend of events. I'm actually going to drop the link right now if anyone is interested. There are a bunch of panels happening. Angela Davis will be speaking at that event. Just a lot happening overall, just trying to promote Black businesses. How can we support Black businesses? So obviously this directory fits in perfectly with that. And so we partnered with them on that, and we will see updates this weekend on how that plays out. And another way that we are trying to transition this list, or we actually have, is a city of Worcester employee contacted us to collaborate on their diverse business directory. So I actually saw this before the creation of the Black-owned Worcester directory, and it's just a little bit confusing. And one thing that we're trying to still figure out how we can collaborate more is centering Black businesses. So if you ever are browsing the diverse business directory of Worcester, it's categorized as like minority owned. So it's labeled like this is owned by a woman, this is owned by someone who identifies as LGBTQ+, this is an Asian American business, but it's just not as specific as we'd like it to be with the collaboration. So that's something that we are going to work on in the future. And we also have been in contact with the Worcester Black History Project. They are aware of the list and they have promoted the list. And we think that they would be a great person or people overall to talk to in terms of the sustainability of the list, because Dorean and I graduate next year, although we don't know what exactly we're doing yet, or where we will be. Of course, Worcester will always be a part of us, but we don't know how central we can be to be constantly updating this. So the Worcester Black History Project would obviously be a perfect fit for that.
Mhm. So definitely throughout this whole process, I guess you can say, starting from like being asked to present at this year's Women in Business Conference, we allowed ourselves in the Jesuit fashion to take time and reflect over what we've done so far and think about how we previously thought about what it meant to be an entrepreneur and what entrepreneurship is. So there was definitely a disconnect between, when people would tell us that we have and we were running a business and what we thought, which essentially was, how can a directory be a business? So through this process, we learned, entrepreneurship is and definitely can be a broad term. So the Oxford Dictionary defines an entrepreneur as a person who organizes and operates a business or businesses taking on greater than normal financial risks in order to do so. So looking at the definition, we definitely were entrepreneurs, and our directory is most certainly a business. We've created an outlet that started off with 25 to maybe 50 businesses and to an almost 100 business count as of yesterday. So what really sealed in this message that yes, we have a business and we're running a business definitely was when we were recently asked if we could share our, and I quote, business logo, which we didn't have up until that moment, and now we do. So this is our logo. We have a few different versions of it, but yeah, this is our logo right now. So yeah.
Yeah, so to put it in short, if anyone joined late, Sienna, had a small idea, well, what I thought to be a small idea. I reached out to Dorean, and
then I talked about how it's not a small idea.
Yes, so validating me, and just how any idea that you have, you really never know where it could lead to. Like now we're presenting at the Women in Business Conference. So just giving you all a little push of to, do whatever your heart desires. In a sense, any idea can become something huge, and we're excited for all the different opportunities that have and will continue to come to us, and connections, and what the list will be in the future. Yeah. So thank you. Oh, go ahead.
And definitely another part of this whole process is, recognizing that, we managed to do this pretty much completely on our own. Though we are Holy Cross students, but this was definitely something we did as just residents of Worcester looking to make an impact or just do something with all that 2020 has brought for every person, especially the Black community. So that was really, just what this list has come to be. And as Sienna has already mentioned, all the opportunities that it has brought. So we definitely would just like to take this moment to thank you all for spending a part of your Saturday with us here and part of the conference. And yeah, thank you. Yeah, so we free to take any questions. Elina wants to manage that.
Yeah, of course. Thank you guys, Dorean and Sienna, for such a wonderful presentation. It's really impressive to see how you guys started with something that's small and now it's just something so big, and you guys are in contact with bigger organizations and you guys are furthering your process. So it's really awesome. And now we can go into our Q&A session if that's fine with you both and fine with everyone else. I can start off with some questions on the Whova platform, and then if anyone else has questions along the way, you can add them in the chat, and we can keep going. All right, so we have the first question from Christina Casey, and she asked, how did businesses respond to your project? So I know you guys talked about that a little bit, but if you guys have any more insight on that.
Sienna, did you want to say something?
Yeah, okay. I can take this one. So initially, like we said, we were a little bit hands off out of our immediate circle. So my friends were excited. They reposted it on their story. They're like, I'm featured in this list. And they were excited about that. in terms of businesses that we were not as close to or were not as in contact with. Again, in the Telegram and Gazette article, some businesses were aware that something was created, something sparked an uptick in the businesses, in the business that they received, diversity of customers than their normal population that sees them. So I think it was definitely well received. And I think, at least for me, I'm excited when I'm featured on something and I automatically share it. So I think people seeing themselves in it, or seeing someone they knew, got them a bit excited, and it kind of just spiraled with the sharing and the connections with the businesses.
Great. Okay, so we have another question from Nalani Ramos Ruiz, and she asks, what surprised you the most from your experience in creating the list of Black-owned businesses and meeting the owners?
I think I'll take, I guess, the first part of this. I think something that definitely surprised me, as I mentioned in the very beginning, which was, I didn't know that there was this many Black-owned businesses in Worcester. And as someone who spent, I guess, the majority of my life as a homebody, I stayed inside most of the time. This was also just beneficial for me and learning more about the community that is Worcester. This is the second largest city in New England. And so there's definitely a lot that Worcester has to offer, but it's not always, out and present. And as we mentioned towards the end, there's this whole directory of diverse businesses, but it wasn't very up to date. It wasn't an exhaustive list. So I think definitely what surprised me through this is just learning about the different businesses, and also the overwhelming amount of support that we received. Just sometimes people would just email us to say, thank you for doing this. Thank you for taking that initiative to just put something like this together. This was definitely needed. And I think definitely for people who are in Worcester but aren't, natives, Worcester natives, this was also a great way for them to really start exploring and thinking about how they can connect with the community better. And that's another part of why I was very excited when Sienna reached out, because that's something I wanted to look. As I mentioned, connectedness is my thing. So, how can I connect, people that I know who are Worcester natives but are spending years in Worcester, whether it's just for college or for after work for some time? How can they, better root themselves within the community?
And another question, kind of like a follow-up, I guess, asked by Christine Lucer. She said, sounds like an excellent project. Curious about metrics. Can you share how you've captured the impact on local businesses?
I'll just pop in because I know you guys addressed this during your talk. So you haven't. And I'm curious what you guys are thinking about doing, because it seems like such an awesome project, but you want to make sure that you're highlighting in the best way possible, which is like, oh, we're seeing so many more customers, and then quantify that. And I think you guys said in your talk you haven't had the chance to do that, but I'm curious if you guys have ideas about how you could.
So one idea that I'm thinking about, and kind of with our next step that we talked about, is maybe with this like raffle gift card type of thing, we can do like a promotion. Like, obviously we can't start it with all the businesses, but maybe a few, we like have them track, like, oh, like, how did you hear about us? Or like a survey that even Dorean and I can create, and maybe asking these businesses like, oh, like, if I know a lot of businesses are doing like the QR code, so maybe at the end, like, oh, would you mind like doing this survey on your experience and how you heard about us? And I think that could be a way, and then we can follow up, like if we did this for maybe 6 months or however many months, and then we followed up with it after. I think that would be a cool idea, but also curious to see if you have any ideas on that.
I teach marketing, so let's talk offline. I want to make sure you can get to all of the other questions, but I'm so happy to chat with you guys. I'm amped about this project.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we definitely love that. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm going to disappear now.
Thank
I
you
feel
so
like
much, Christine.
in this time of just like virtual learning, you kind of also learn how accessible it is to use like the online platforms. And like you were saying, like the QR code, like I find it really cool whenever I go to a restaurant, like their menus on a QR code.
Mhm.
It's just really cool how that's come to be. But I think we have another question from Yolanda Raboon. Sorry if I'm butchering the name, but what measures do you have in place to ensure the update of the directory for years to come? So I know you guys talked about that a little bit, but if you have any more to say on that.
So I think it is in the works. I don't think anything is set up yet, but I think as Dorean and I transition, I mean, again, we don't know where we'll be in a year. We could very much so be in Worcester, and that's perfectly fine. But as we transition, like making sure that is set up. So, like I said, the Worcester Black History Project. I mean, I know people that have within the Black History Project that have established families here and don't really see themselves leaving as of now. So, like maybe transferring it over to some of those people, whereas I like want to I just don't know where I'll be. So maybe trying to shift that now and like maybe over winter break, that can be kind of the next steps for Doreen and I. Like before school started, we are like, okay, let's do this promotion, contact all the colleges and universities in Worcester. And now with the school year, things are slowing down, but we actually are doing some presentations during the school year, and over winter break we can kind of set that foundation up for when we graduate in May, like who will have this, how will it look like, and what can we do to make sure that it stays in Worcester.
Right, definitely tapping into the connections we've made, like the Black History Project, the people with that, and seeing how, I think it's also important for us to keep the directory, the way that we envisioned it. So definitely working with people that we know would be able to keep it that way. And we really don't know. I mean, I think this year has made it clear for everyone that you really just don't know what's going to happen next. So, for now, just trying to connect with these people that we've already built connections with, build kind of rapport with. So, making sure that whatever we do decide and how we decide to do it, that I guess the way we decided or how we hope the list will continue to look that way. Thank you. That was a good question.
So as for the bigger organizations that you guys have had connections with, do you guys want to talk a little bit about how you made those connections?
I guess it really was like the Telegram and Gazette. That was a catalyst for it to just really positive and negative side of it. Definitely remember scrolling through the Telegram, Gazette, Facebook, Facebook comments, and then there's positive and negative things. In terms of like those bigger ones, yeah, definitely just having that article come out for the businesses that knew directly that there was a directory like this that was out, and then there was some that didn't know. But as I mentioned before, they could track when the directory had first gone public because they had seen a surge in customers or just people reaching out to them. I don't know if Sienna wants to add anything in terms of that. But yeah, like we had mentioned, we weren't completely in contact. We weren't in like direct contact with a lot of the businesses on our list. It was more so, from like word of mouth in terms of like, oh, this big business is on this list, and they know that it was started by these young women and things like that.
Yeah, I think you covered most of it. But honestly, just sending the email, the comment, the DM is how we connected with people. And also like searching on platforms like Worcester Black owned or Black owned Worcester, kind of the same thing that Doreen talked about with the hashtags. Like seeing where it was posted, because someone posted it on Facebook before I did. So I had to I was just going through and people were like, oh, who created this and things like that. So kind of getting back to those comments and being like, hi, like I'm one of the like creators of the list, like, so thank you so much. So kind of connecting with people that way, like figuring out who posted it, who's talking about it, and just getting in touch with them and just making sure that they know our faces.
And if not
That
faces,
seems
definitely
super
our names.
important,
You're right. You're right.
Yeah. I think as young entrepreneurs, that's super helpful for other young entrepreneurs because obviously you guys are still both students. And so I think that's really good insight. So we do have another question from Yolanda, and she asks if you could ask Vice President-elect Harris a question on the future of women empowerment for people of color, what would it be and why? Why that question?
I have to think before. Doreen and I were practicing this before, and then we found out the news, and we were like,
And then
"Oh
it
my
was
god!"
just
Like, like we have to
Crazy,
practice,
yeah.
but like I want to
yeah, we
celebrate.
definitely
So,
haven't been
Yeah.
able to process.
I don't know. That's a very, very good question. I think I would have a better answer, or I will have a better answer once we see how she is in office, I guess. But I don't know, Doreen, do you have something?
Well, like I said,
I'm
I really do
thinking.
need to process. Well, I have to process the news before I can even process what I would ask. I think definitely, maybe I think a question I would ask is, Vice President isn't a small title at all, right? And as the first woman to be in such a position, I think something else that's something that we've kind of experienced throughout this is just how women are perceived in the world of business, in the world of entrepreneurship. And then I had mentioned, this kind of narrative of the strong Black woman, right? And how that can be a detrimental trope for Black women. So I think I would ask something along the lines of, just like how do you stay afloat? How do you self-preserve? I think self-preservation is definitely through this election, throughout this whole year, and something that I think everyone should have been striving to work towards. So in such a position, like how do you manage to stay afloat? How do you preserve the self? I guess I think that's something I'd probably ask. Yeah. Thank you. That was a really good question.
Great,
Thank
thanks
you,
for your
Londa.
response. Yeah, and she actually has another question, and she said, despite the environment, do you think you could have been prepared/coached for the regional television interview, and did anyone recommend that to you at the time? Meaning, could you have raised the directory and the injustices to the forefront? And she mentions no wrong answer here.
In terms of coaching,
go ahead.
No, feel free to go first. Yeah.
So I was gonna say the same thing. In terms of coaching, like it was just like for me, like I only told my dad. So there was no real mentor, and this was also during the summer. I think maybe if this was during the school year, I could have asked some professors that I know or have had and feel comfortable sharing or being vulnerable with in that sense. So in terms of mentors, I don't know, but I do think that we could have combined everything together and done so. I was just still a little bit nervous, but I do think that it could have been possible. And at the same time, I don't regret not doing it. Like I think we were fine without it. And if we did it, it would have been great. But I'm also fine not doing it. And yeah.
Yeah. And then just to quickly add on, yeah, in terms of coaching, I don't think we, at that time that we were asked, we also had a very short notice when we were asked. I think that's something I didn't mention, but that was also another factor. So not only was it just like, did we have someone to coach, but it was also that I don't even think that really came into our mind. It was like, okay, this is something we want to do. And then, with the probing of Sienna's dad to say, hey, like, think about what this could mean. But I think definitely experiencing, before being asked, having people kind of skew the message that we were putting out there. that also impacted our decision to say no to, like Sienna had mentioned during the presentation. It was live, and I don't think we were in a space where we would be able to handle if they just decided to turn questions or twist our wording. So that was definitely something to consider. But I think, if it was in a different time, a different space, then yeah. But I think the biggest concern was, how could this be taken to a different light that we did not intend it to be, and realizing, we don't need to do, we don't need that type of we don't need to access that type of outfit, essentially. Yeah.
Right. And Christine mentioned in the chat about your point about being okay with saying no and how much she loves it. And I also very much love it. I do also have a problem with saying no. I feel like when an opportunity jumps at me, I feel like I need to take it. And I think it's really important that you guys did have an opportunity, but still measured out all the factors and decided that it wasn't right for you. And I think that's super important.
Yeah, definitely. And I always keep mentioning this year, but it's true. I think for me, this is definitely a year that I felt that, like, if I don't seize an opportunity now, like, the world is ending. So like, I don't know what's gonna happen next. So really, really taking the time to step back and reflect, and like I mentioned, staying grounded and
Definitely
sticking true to what we want to put out there and what our message is, and doing what we plan to do. So yeah.
Okay, so we have one more question on the Whova platform from Monica Palenko, and she asks, have y'all thought about expanding from Worcester and making sister companies in different cities or something in that realm?
I mean, the way we've gotten submissions from people outside of Worcester, I guess we could. Sienna, if you wanted to take a stab at that.
Yeah, so I think it's definitely possible. And again, given this power of hashtags, we can see what has already been created for other cities, towns, and Worcester County overall, and then just collabing with those people. I think it is possible. I think it just feels a little bit special right now because it is our city, but I don't think, of course, there's any harm in expanding it to Worcester County. It would just kind of be like the same process over again. Like, we might have to shift and adjust with how we are collecting submissions, because we obviously expect a huge number of businesses to be coming in if we're collabing with Worcester County. But again, that can also tie into previous questions asked with kind of the state sustainability of the list. If we expand it to Worcester County, more people to connect with, more people to keep it up to date. So I think it's possible.
Yeah, and then I guess the other thing is, possibly expanding past Worcester. I mean, Worcester is large and Worcester County is huge. So if we were to, it definitely would have to be a collaborative effort. Like Sienna had already mentioned, like, both of us were not really set in stone of, like, what are we doing post grad? What is the next 5 years? I never know what I want to have for dinner, so I don't know what next year's gonna look like. So definitely, if we were to expand, it would definitely be a collaborative effort. Tapping into other lists that we've seen around, Springfield, Boston are two. I remember in the comment section of the Instagram post, there is a new mobile application that is basically a map of the nation, and if you can go on there and you can search up, like, Black businesses, and they had reached out to me because they wanted to get all the Worcester businesses that we were having at that point on their application. So I will drop that in the chat if anyone wants to look at that. I'm still developing, but I thought it was a very cool application that's being put out there. So yeah, it would have to be a collaborative effort. And again, we're not sure if we want to, pass this on to, like, say, the Black History Project in a way too. So that's also something to factor in. Yeah.
Okay, well, if anyone else has any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat, or you could even unmute yourself and ask a question because they have answered all the questions from the Whova platform. Thank you guys so much for your wonderful responses and your insight.
Yeah, thank you everyone who, again, who took the time out of their Saturday to come spend some time with us in this virtual space. And yeah, thank you so much.
You guys did such a great job. I'm gonna head out, but I put my email in the chat if you guys
Thank
want
you
to.
so much.
Thank you so
Christine.
much.
Have a great day.
Thank you too. Bye.
Yeah, so I think we can probably wrap it up. We do have about 10 minutes left, but I think you guys have really hit on a lot of good points. So thank you guys so much for your presentation, and thank you to all the participants who joined us today. I hope you guys enjoyed, and if you guys just want to close off with any last minute thoughts, feel free.
Yeah, I just dropped in the link tree once again for the final time for anyone who hasn't been able to see the list for themselves. If you go on the list, there's an outline that outlines the whole document, and this makes it so much easier to navigate as well. But yeah, just thank you again for being here and hearing our story.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you guys.
Thank you so much.